Hey everybody, I'm Mike Vizard. Today we're going to be talking about, Intel and AMD are strange bedfellows. Lenovo seems to think AI needs a drink of water, and BMC's at a crossroads. You're watching Techstrong. All right, folks, we're back, and our guest today, of course, start with our Mitch Ashley, who is not in Colorado for the fourth straight week. I mean, do you have a home?
I don't know, but I hear this is what sea level is like. Interesting. It's nice to experience this.
All right. And you're in the Bay Area today, right?
Yeah, I'm in San Francisco, Bay Area.
All right. And John Schwartz is also in the Bay Area. And I got a nickel that says neither one of you is going to meet each other.
I am not in the Bay Area, Mike. I am in Seattle.
You're up in Seattle. Okay, we're playing musical.
That's right.
You heard I was going to be in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so I left town. I skipped town. I owe you some money, so I'm out.
There you go. And then we have Hope Lynch once again. Hope, I think, are you home or you're the only one home?
I am at home. If we'd done this another day coming up, I would have been in Atlanta, but I am at home today.
All right. And I am outside of my normal New York environment. I'm here in Las Vegas for this BMC event, and we'll explain what that's all about in a minute. But first, let's jump into this whole AMD and Intel have gotten together for a consortium that's going to promote x86 together. I mean, John, you were at this event, but my first reaction was, wow, hey, hell did freeze over.
Yeah, pigs flew. Who knew? It was very strange. So yeah, last week I did a briefing with Lenovo. So this was at the Tech World 2024 conference that they do every year now. And they told me that Pat Gelsinger and Lisa Su are going to be at this event. I was like, no way. I said, well, maybe they're going to appear separately and they will be sandwiched with other folks in the tech industry speaking. They said, no, they're going to be talking back to back and they're going to be talking about something they agree on. And it's this thing called the x86 Ecosystem Advisory Group, which is basically a consortium that's designed to push forward the ecosystem around x86 processors as we go into the AI age. And so it's interesting. So Pat Gelsinger walks out and he says, Lisa and Pat finally agree on something that he mentions the group. And he says, who would have thunk it? And he proceeded to be very diplomatic. And then she came out and did the same thing. And I think what they both wanted us to know, and they made it very clear, was how important it is in the development of the processors as we go into the AI age, and how they want it to remain a bedrock of modern computing and kind of a de facto architecture. What was also interesting, everyone, was that Microsoft, which doesn't really talk so much about this technology, was part of this consortium, while the founding members did not include Amazon and NVIDIA. I just mentioned some of the members of this group. There's Broadcom, Dell, Google, HP, Lenovo, Meta, Oracle, IBM, plus Linus Torvalds and Tim Sweeney of Epic Games. So it was a very interesting event, and unbeknownst to me, and this wasn't to say about me as a reporter, I'm covering this, and meanwhile, the two, Lisa and Pat, go backstage, and they end up being interviewed by our own Daniel Newman and Patrick Moorhead, who put up a video that I linked in the story. It's very, very, very interesting. And, it shows that they can agree on something, but I think they're agreeing on something as kind of a defensive measure against perhaps ARM or others. So, again, something I didn't expect to see at a Lenovo conference, to be quite honest.
It's very, I think you can look at the AI chip side of it, but very clearly ARM has made huge inroads, kind of from the edge and into the data center. So that clearly has to be a big part of it. Not surprisingly, yeah. It's interesting to see what this consortium or what will come of it. Sometimes these things are mostly look and not much output, and sometimes they really do some interesting things. So I'm interested to see where this will go.
I'm wondering, when I looked at it, I was like, the fear factor here is huge. I mean, for these two to get together and do anything of this means that they are, I'm going to use the word terrified. It's Qualcomm and ARM on one side and NVIDIA on the other. And these guys are, walking around going, hey, this x86 thing, might just wind up being, a nice legacy architecture that we finally remember at this point.
Go way of the way of the Motorola processor or something.
Yeah, where's those? Where are those Sunrisk processors when you need them again?
I think I've got some of that stock at home. Yeah.
It's interesting that Mitch said, he's absolutely right. It's dead on. How many consortiums do we all remember are these initiatives that were announced that amounted to nothing? They were all ceremonial. The difference between that and what's going on with Intel and AMD was very specific. I've looked at press releases from both companies, very specific ideas of what they want to do. So they've been thinking about this. And Mike, you're right, they are probably terrified.
Mm-hmm. Hope, from the software community, when you look at these little hardware parties, does anybody in the software side notice, care, or is it just kind of like something that happens, deep down in the hardware that they're not really paying much attention?
Notice and do care once there are some standards and something you can develop against, right? So if you have a team that is developing for iOS, they would be interested if there was some announcement in this consortium that had something to do with Apple. But as far as x86, if there are new standards that they provide, I think there will be a lot of interest. But one of the other things that does come to mind, and this bears on a conversation we had a few weeks ago, we were saying, what's Intel going to do? How are they going to solve this problem? Is it going to be a takeover, or what other solution is going to come about? And this is one option that did not come to mind for me, that they would do an enemy of my enemy is my friend tactic and try to find a way out.
The part that leaves me scratching my head a little bit is both AMD and Intel have other processors besides x86. And so now they're standing around touting x86 as like a platform for running your AI inference engine. But you got other processors that arguably are going to run those inference engines better. I mean, x86 may be less costly, but you make a trade-off between the capabilities of the platform and the accuracy of the LLM when you use an x86 processor. So it strikes me as kind of like, why did we need to tie this to AI?
Because AI.
Well, I think the Intel chip train. I mean, we all have been on this transportation line for a number of years, right? Every generation of Intel that comes out, and they come out with faster and faster and faster, and then the next generation comes out with a different, footprint for the Intel chip line for processors, and everything from low power to very high end server kind of things. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's signaling an end to that, but I think it's signaling an end to that's the reliable path, right? Intel can't just stay on that path alone. AMD has certainly become much more competitive and doing well in its technology that it's delivering. You've got ARM, who's also now competing on the scene. You've got NVIDIA and everybody who's making AI chip, or as well as Intel and everybody making their own. So it's become, instead of Intel and everybody else, it's become everybody. And yes, Intel is still a big gorilla, but so is NVIDIA. And I think it's just to me, it's more of a sign of a reseeding of dominance in the market and less dominance by Intel and more, I don't want to say equity, but more strength by multiple players.
John,
Lenovo. I was going to tell you before, Mitch brought up a good point. Before I forget, Lenovo was hedging its bet, by the way. So later in the program, which is about a 2-hour keynote in the morning, they brought out a video of the Qualcomm CEO, Kristen. And then later, guess who appeared on stage? You only get one guess. Guess who appeared at an AI event on stage as the headliner to announce a partnership with Lenovo? Yes, Jensen.
Did he have a fancy leather jacket?
Of course, it's the same one, right? It's Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs will wear the turtleneck. He wears the black jacket. Yeah, it's Steve Jobs with the jacket, the tough guy look. But he came on later. We'll talk about what they.
In the age of AI, it could be Steve Jobs one of these days. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm waiting for that. But
it's interesting.
So in a sense, so they crossed all paths. Yeah, well, I will talk about that in the next segment about what NVIDIA and Lenovo did, which is kind of interesting.
It almost feels like a Game of Thrones episode. It's like nobody dies. It's just the seats are changing, and a lot of things. Games within games, plans within plans. It's just really fascinating to me because the market has really changed substantially.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because Lisa Su referenced that. They talked about how quickly things are moving and how the import of what they were doing just in general with this consortium. And in a sense, if you really read into it, it's a fear of the unknown. She talked about short gain versus long vision. That was a theme of what she was discussing. And it's the fact that they just really don't know where this is going and they're trying to hedge their bets.
John, a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about Qualcomm and maybe launching a bid to acquire Intel. And we had Wall Street investors and financial services firms were talking about that. And, we were likening it to, I'm sure you remember the book and the HBO series, Barbarians at the Gate. Was there any talk of that at this event on the sidelines where people going, hey, who's going to be on?
There wasn't. No, not really. That's what happens, I guess. I remember that story. These companies all talk to each other, right? In one form or another, to some varying degrees of seriousness. That one had some traction for a bit of time. I wonder if it was a trial balloon in a certain sense. But no. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Motorola also had an executive there. Actually, before the event started, I didn't know who this lady was, but I was sitting there talking to her. She ended up presenting on stage. So they speaking of companies, in this realm, they were everywhere. But no, that rumor, I don't know. I don't know how much credence there is to it. I mean, I'm sure there was discussion, but I wouldn't bet on that. Qualcomm, Intel, nah.
And did they mention anything from this, the United States government, shall we say, offering perhaps a helping hand? I'm trying to avoid using the word bailout, but It is what it is.
Handout, yeah. Yeah, the Pat handout tour. No, they did not mention that. He kept his. I got to be honest. They had so many tech. They had Nadella, Zuckerberg. Those are both by video. They were obviously taped beforehand. They had the FIFA president there, for God's sake. They had so many moving parts that everything was at the most superficial level. They had the major talking points, and they shuffled them on and off stage. But the government thing is a kind of a point of sensitivity for Intel, right? Given where they used to be and where they are now. So it was FIFA
doing there?
Peter. Okay, so yeah, this was the big reveal. The big reveal. So Apple has their one more thing. They literally ripped off that idea. The YY, who's the CEO of Lenovo, said, "We have one more thing we can't tell you about. It's state secret." And it was the FIFA president, Mr. Infantino, announced that they are the technology partner for FIFA. I know they have a partnership with F1, and they work with Lotus. This is Lenovo. They're going to be the official tech sponsor or tech partner for the men and women's World Cups in 2026 and 2027. I asked an executive later, if he could tell me, well, what does that mean? Is that you're going to enhance the fans' experience? Or, well, what are you going to do? And then he kind of shut me down because I think they don't know what they're going to do yet. They're kind of formulating ideas of what they might.
Yeah, well, the various superimpositions into FIFA should be over by then, right?
Thank God. Yeah.
Well, so let me take back what I said. Given the F1 relationship, Lenovo has a very long-standing relationship and demonstrated practice of capturing telemetry. That's what's happening in racing. Now, I'm not saying, maybe we're putting chips in shoes or, armbands with chips in them or something with, on FIFA players. I don't know that that's true, but there could be some very interesting statistical analysis, AI applications, things that they could do to really enhance the game, either for the viewers, or possibly, for coaching and playing too. So that there could be some really interesting things that come out of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to end this conversation, but I'm looking forward to the EU, what it has to say about collecting data off of soccer players. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Oh, God.
We'll see regulation next year.
EU AI FIFA Act. You will all be fine.
There you go.
Unless my team wins.
All right, folks, we're gonna be back in a minute to talk more about Lenovo.
Accelerate your DevOps journey at DevOps Experience 2024. Join us for an exhilarating experience that will transform your DevOps practices. Explore emerging trends in DevOps and advanced platform engineering techniques. Learn how to integrate security while leveraging AI to drive efficiency and innovation. Mark your calendars for October 16, 2024. Discover how to improve operational velocity and foster a culture of continuous improvement. Ready to elevate your DevOps strategy? See you there at DevOps Experience 2024.
All right, folks, we're back here. We're continuing to talk about Lenovo, which, in addition to hanging out with Intel, was also getting warm and fuzzy with NVIDIA, as is everybody else these days. And John, you were there, but apparently they're talking about water-cooled systems to run these AI things that we've got going.
Yeah, they saved the best for last. Jensen came on late Tuesday afternoon, and they talked about expanding an existing partnership with something called Lenovo Hybrid AI Advantage with NVIDIA, and they introduced something called the ThinkSystem SC777 V4 Neptune. So it's a system that leverages Lenovo's Neptune product to bring Blackwell and NVIDIA's GB200 to the enterprise market. So anyway, what they're trying to do is let organizations build and run accelerated computing for generative AI while reducing the data center power consumption by up to 40%. So it's basically a vertical liquid cooling system that maximizes data center power for AI and research. That's the bottom line of what they're doing. There are a lot of verbiage, but in a sense, it's a collaboration, and it was interesting. It was, to me, it was kind of a change of pace from what NVIDIA usually does, which is, it's kind of this highfalutin partnership with a ServiceNow or Adobe or whomever, Salesforce. I'm losing track. Jensen came out. He didn't talk so much about this initiative, but he talked about the importance of AI agents. And again, he started talking about this idea of unleashing billions of them. He calls them little Jensens, right? And they would basically be glorified workers or co-workers in environments and raise efficiency. But one of the takeaways from the Lenovo event was two things: a star-studded array of CEOs to pat Lenovo on the back. Plus, they did make a big play about sustainability. And I was going to mention this to Bonnie. This was a very hardcore theme throughout the day. So again, Jensen shows up. They do this announcement. They present him with some hardware. He genuflects in the glory of NVIDIA being the kingmaker in AI, which it continues to be. And this was the highlight of a day that was devoted to kind of a review or refresh of the Lenovo product line, with the Greek chorus of support from Zuckerberg via Llama, Microsoft via Azure, Qualcomm, etc. It was very interesting. It was quite a stark contrast from last week in the Tesla announcement, which was one of the weirdest. It was almost kind of like a bad LSD trip, right? This long 40-minute video, then followed by absolutely very little superficial data or numbers. Here with Lenovo, it's just the opposite. Every tech company imaginable is involved with specific numbers, specific statistics, specific talking points. So it was quite a contrast comparing the two.
Mitch, I'm going to go with that theme that John brought up because I am having a flashback here. Back in the day when we used to visit data centers, right? They would give us the tour, and they were all, so proud of the fact that they had these water-cooled capabilities, and there was pipes everywhere. And then we spent about the next 10 years ripping out those pipes because we had finally made the chips cool enough that we could actually run them without all this water, and we could actually just, run them in a lower cost cage. So here we are talking about water cooled systems again. Are we coming full circle on this?
Well, I think it was once the hearing loss kicked in from those high-speed, very loud fans in those data centers. I mean, literally, you couldn't decide. We'd have to be this close to each other to talk to each other. It's maybe it's a pendulum. I think it's very much representative of how much power and how much heat is generated from GPUs. And as we continue to accelerate what they can do, you can't air cool them. It's just, there is a, ceiling of which that goes up against, so if I kind of turn it on its head, let me look at the software side of this. To me, every announcement we hear from NVIDIA partnering with somebody else, we talk about the hardware side. The part we don't talk about is CUDA. It's another place where CUDA is the software framework, right, that's used for AI applications. Strengthens its hold, or gives us another foothold, strengthens a foothold it already has in the software world of interfacing to AI. And we talk about NVIDIA and its strength in hardware. In the end, others may catch up in the hardware side of it, or become more competitive with NVIDIA. The software is hard to displace. You don't rip that out like you do the next generation servers. We're going to go with somebody else's chip. Right? Well, no, I built all these apps on CUDA, and that's going to stay. So we're going to stick with NVIDIA. So I think there's some real, you talk about short-term and long-term, John, kind of what the horizons of these things are. I think it's a huge win for CUDA. CUDA is as Barracuda, if that's what it's named after, is a waterborne fish. So maybe that's why we're seeing all this water-cooled stuff, Mike. I don't know.
But Hope, in my experience, every time the processors get too hot and we can't afford to run the systems, it's not too long before we start blaming the developers and the software people for writing crappy, inefficient code.
Yes.
So,
I knew we were going to get to that. You
yes,
help yourself,
no,
Mike.
Unfortunately, but I think you have there are boundaries that you can work in as a developer, the code you write. And so much of what your boundary is based on the hardware you have. There have been breakthroughs over the years where developers have been giddy because instead of now the system being overclocked because of just how hard they're having to make it run, it can handle it. But if this is now saying developers can get, let's say, higher performance per watt, right, out of this. So they can harness more of the parallel processing power of the GPUs. This gives more efficiency for some of the large-scale computations than you would get on traditional CPUs. This can reduce overall energy consumption, but also, yes, it can help developers when they're trying to build higher performance systems, doing higher performance computations. This definitely can be a win. Will it solve the problem? No, because developers are going to still continue to scale up once they figure out what the edge is. They're still going to push it to the edge, but I think this does give some headroom.
Well, Hope, every time a developer adds a new API call in to the CUDA framework, another developer gets their wings.
Yes.
I believe it.
Absolutely.
So
we're coming up on the holiday season. I thought I'd throw that in there, Mike.
One question I have, or I'm looking for opinions here. One of the things that also I thought about, at least in North Carolina, there are a lot of data centers being built, a lot of data centers that already exist. Is this going to be a way that, I don't know, some of these organizations that are building these big data centers, they can come in and say now, hey, you have these concerns about water usage and power consumption and all of this. Look at this advancement we have, right? That's going to let us do more with less in this space, with this footprint. The one thing I am looking for, and maybe I missed it, is what are the numbers? What is the percentage of reduction, right, in power consumption? Is there a reduction in water use, or are they going to use more water? Those questions are going to be really important in the communities where these data centers are built and exist.
They're going to use more, and it's not like they're going to use less. They're just going to say, hey, now that we got these water-cooled systems, we can use even more stuff. And then they're going to wrap themselves in that sustainability flag that John was talking about and say what great citizens they are.
Oh, yeah.
John, I mean, they were talking sustainability. I mean, what did you hear at the event?
Well, they were throwing out a lot of percentages. I think one of the themes, I think, and it just doesn't apply just to Lenovo, but I think they almost feel a responsibility to throw out safeguards, guardrails. These are words that I consistently hear: sustainability. We will adhere to regulations. We will gain your trust. These are almost things that they're almost thinking kind of 6 to 9 months beyond the announcement. And once the product is out there, they want to, in a sense, kind of safeguard themselves against backlash, right? So sustainability is something that it's like in Silicon Valley, it's something that's being overused, I think, as a talking point to show that you're a good corporate citizen. Because I think a lot of these companies are a little bit on their heels, are a little bit touchy around their relationship with the government, this trust around AI, which continues now. So I think they're checking a box. I don't mean to be too cynical, but I really do think they're checking a box. I do think they also, I mean, Lenovo claims, and I don't know the history of Lenovo to either agree with them or disagree, that they've always thought about sustainability. I mean, this is the 6th generation of the Neptune product, so I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's part of their DNA, but my suspicious gene kind of jumps. The spidey sense goes off a little bit when I hear these things, because they're almost, part of the script. In a lot of these events, Mike, as you can probably vouch over the years, they all tend to follow a certain type of script and a certain type of talking points. So that's kind of my cynical take. Sorry to feel that way, but I really do.
This is an imperfect comparison, but we're talking about net carbon neutral, right? We take carbon out of and we expend it, right? We need something similar to that to say we have reduced power consumption, we have reduced, water consumption, whatever it might be, this much while we're using more to do more power, but we're using it at a less increasing rate. You need to know that differential, right? It isn't that just that it uses 20% less power. Well, compared to what, right? We've increased the overall power consumption, just not
hard. Yeah.
All right. So I have 2 cynical thoughts on this. So you might be surprised.
Yeah, you did.
But here's my first thing, right? If they're serious about it, I would like to see a response back from the occasional prompt that says, based on the amount of carbon that you're about to kick off on this puppy, we're not going to run it because it's just not worth the trouble, right? We have no metrics in here to say this thing is, out of control. Secondarily, it would be nice maybe if we had a pricing mechanism that said, hey, based on the amount of carbon that you're about to kick off for this prop, you are going to pay more for the privilege, right? And maybe we're going to use that money to offset some of the costs that we are incurring as we destroy the landscape in North Carolina. Follow me?
Sorry, Hope.
It's the price we pay, I guess. But yeah.
How do you respond to that? I don't know.
Yeah, there. I was gonna mention that years ago there was AT&T had this massive data center somewhere in Virginia. I remember I literally had to keep my eyes closed for a while they were driving me there. It was surrounded by a moat. It had armed guards. One of their prized possessions that they wanted to show me was the water tower in the back. And I think about that as the days of those might be going away. I don't know. I don't think this announcement is as impressive as it may be to some people is going to have that significant an impact on the data centers. There's a rush of building them.
I used to do data center tours in my first job out of college with EDS. And besides the big control room, the unveil, open the curtain, that was the big wow. The second biggest impressive thing, the tank barrier at the entrance to the data center that raised stuff out of the ground. Everybody envisioned like, wow, I'd hate to run into that. You just never know what's going to impress us.
Was this before or after you oohed and ah over all the racks of servers? I mean, where was that in that?
That was in the IBM days. They're all enclosed cabinets. You couldn't see anything. It was just a big cabinets. Could have been clothes stored in there. You don't know.
They used to have labels from all the vendors that were in there, like they were badges of honor. Now I just think I think they just get them all now from like Supermicro, and there's no labels anywhere. So
blinky lights.
All right. Well, we're going to end this chat about Lenovo and water-cooled systems and AI and sustainability because, well, it's bigger than all of us. So hopefully we'll figure out something to do about this soon. But right now, there's a data center coming near you. Stay tuned. All right, folks, and now we're going to talk about what's going on with BMC. They're here in Las Vegas for their BMC Connect event this week. And, well, it's kind of a tale of two cities. If you haven't been paying attention, BMC was announced that they're going to separate into two independent companies. One is called BMC Helix, which is their ITSM platform. And the other is, what we might call classic BMC, where it's basically the automation frameworks and the AI engines that get wrapped around that. Now, it's interesting because one of the things that we're talking about here in terms of Helix is that they're adding AI agents to the platform. And at least the theory is that these AI agents will take on more tasks and they have reasoning capabilities. Now, this is a kind of a separate conversation, but we'll jump into this because I know John has done some work in this AI agents and orchestration conversation. And one of the things that I'm hearing from folks is that the so-called reasoning engines that are in these LLMs are roughly equivalent to, a 5-year-old child that burns its fingers, learns that the stove is hot. And we are just overhyping the crap out of these reasoning engines. And one of the things that BMC is saying is you're going to need these orchestration frameworks to actually tell these various agents, along with all the humans involved, what to do when. So, what is your sense of what's going on with these reasoning engines that everybody's touting and agentic AI? I mean, is this, the second wave of a hype cycle?
Sounds like it to me. So was there a story? Wasn't there like a story or a research that was done? I don't have it in front of me. It just happened. I just wrote about it. It all is a blur after a while, Mike. There's so many agentic related type announcements. There was this Swarm. We don't have to talk about Swarm from OpenAI, but that whole concept of things working in coordination with one another. But then there's lab results or tests that show that these agents aren't nearly as intelligent as we thought they were. So you juxtapose that versus the hype cycle where we have Benioff and Jensen Huang at Dreamforce telling us that as we arrive at work, these agents will be doing all the drudgery that we dread doing when we first get into work, like all the ditch digging, so to speak. They're going to take care of all that. That seems to me like very optimistic when they say, oh, it's right around the corner. Well, what do you define as the corner? Is that 5 years, 3 years? And so the more I think about it, I wonder what Hope thinks about this. should we be as afraid or fearful of these agentic AI taking our jobs, or is this just kind of part of a hype, utopian view that is far away and is not going to happen?
I feel I agree with you. There is a lot of hype right now because it's in the realm of imagination, right? Everyone imagines and thinks and dreams about all of the things that can happen before people on a larger scale, companies on a larger scale, have actually tried these things and put them into practice. And one of my amazing Kreskin predictions I will make right now is it won't be as great as some people may believe. Because imagine you're in an organization and you have all of these AI agents deployed, and they are taking care of a lot of the lower level tasks. That is great. There are some things that should be automated away. But if it is some of the thinking tasks that you would do in your role, now you are, to me, building even bigger silos. You're creating bigger knowledge gaps. You're increasing the opportunity to build tribal knowledge because there are so many things in your role you will not see, touch, you don't know how to do, and you don't understand because the agent has always been there, just taking care of it. Look out for the day that the agents break and you're just sitting there trying to figure out how to get your work done. But I think there's a lot of hype right now. I think there are useful places for it, like, repetitive documentation, repetitive intake types of tasks. But I think some of the others we should wait a little bit longer before we jump aboard and just try to throw everything at the agents.
Yeah, they had this weird hypothetical situation at the Lenovo conference near the end. They have a futurist, Allie Miller, who has quite a following. Mm-hmm. And she was talking with the CTO of Lenovo about car buying agents and a scenario where your agent knows the type of car you want, all the additions you want, your personal financial situation, so how you would pay for it. And this is all going to happen very conveniently without you involved at all. And I was thinking, come on, this is like pie in the sky stuff.
I'm on the other side of this. I think we're going to have all these agents running around doing stuff, and they're going to drive us crazy because they're going to be like, they're going to be overly helpful all the time, and they're going to be like, "Can you do this for you?" And you're going to go, "No," and then like 2 minutes later, you're going to be like, "Put that down," and then about half an hour in, you're going to, "You do that, I will smack you upside your head."
Yeah, love it.
Hey, can I mention something totally off topic? I have two fun facts about the amazing Kreskin. Number one, he was on the Tonight Show more than any other guest in the history of the show, evidently. Really? Yes. Number two, I went to a Christmas tech party years ago I took my daughter who's a reporter. He was performing. No one knew who he was, number one. Number two, he bombed on everything. He screwed up everything. And later I went up to him.
Even funnier.
And it was so bad. It was so embarrassing. And it was just, I'm watching it, and it was just so heartbreaking to me in a certain sense. And I walked up to him later and I said, I'm sorry, what happened? He goes, that's showbiz. Anyway, that's something, that was an insight to life to me, right? And I thought that was so great. I respected him even more. Sorry, I had to share that. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's great. Oh.
Now I have visions of Johnny Carson and the amazing Karnak going through my mind too. So thanks.
Oh, nice. But you know what, Mike? It's also that the whole thing with, you're right. It's going to be, when you talk about swarm is a good word to use, because these things are going to be pinging you from every conceivable angle. It's like the overzealous GPS system that says, "Oh, there's a little bit of a backup there. Why don't you go off the side of the road for a while?" I've done that, and then I turned it off. It's like, do this now. Do this. I have another suggestion here. This will help you. It's like, please stop it. Just leave me alone. And that's another consequence,
right? And, and I love what John's talking about is OpenAI has this Swarm project, which is going to be this orchestration engine for these agents that they're talking about. But it doesn't seem to me they have a lot of confidence in the thing, because the first thing they said is, A, it's experimental, and B,
no product. Yeah, it's not a product. Instead of the blog, basically, here it is, but don't hold us to anything. Just it's just a concept. Don't worry about it.
I think what they're saying is, this is something we built. We're not sure if we can make it work, and we're hoping somebody else can figure this out. But here's where we are.
Let's put it out there and see what happens. But
yeah. Hey, can I ask you, Mike, about the BMC? Was it they talked about generative AI in the mainframe? Was that?
Yeah,
what was that about?
This is a follow-up. They've been talking about this as a statement of direction for a few months now, and they are now have an actual AI assistant, and it's called Amy. I actually had to explain to them that there was actually a song called Amy, and basically had a refrain, "Hey Amy, what you want to do?" But they were totally like way over their heads. But I think they're all looking it up now. But the point here is, it explains the code on the mainframe, which is an issue because, large numbers of mainframers are now sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais and being semi-retired. At least that's my vision for them. I hope that's how it all worked out. And there's all this code that nobody documented back in the day. And now we need to use AI to go sort this thing and say, hey, can we fix this code? Can we modernize it? Do we need to rewrite it? And I think AI will play a huge role in that. So BMC's on the right track for that. And now they've come up with an assistant that helps you sort through that. And they too will then probably extend that to include agents for mainframes. And maybe they'll do the actual work of rewriting that code. We'll see. That's, clearly IBM and everybody else is kind of talking about the same path. But it's interesting. I've seen in Hope, I don't know, maybe... I've seen a pullback in the language used for these tools, right? It was kind of like, we're going to convert COBOL to Java using this. And now it's kind of like, nope, we're going to help you upgrade from Java 8 to Java 17. And that's about as far as we're getting at the moment. So, have we kind of like pulled in our horns a little bit on what these code explanation writing tools can actually do for us?
I think so, because it's been in more hands and people have actually seen not only what it does, but what it does well and not so well, right? So I think it's tempered the expectations and just the use cases that people are applying it to. If we think about, though, when you're talking about the mainframes, my spidey sense is tingled a little bit, because I'm thinking, there's got to be a solution. But a lot of the systems that are still using mainframes today are the heavy hitting systems that are running the financial backbone, at least in the United States, right? I know the IRS still has a lot of mainframe systems. There are other companies that still have a lot of mainframe systems. So if you bring agents in, and now the agents are making updates, they're working autonomously. I'm going to say, my brain starts to think about, the bad actors are already there, but wow, if they can put these agents to work for them, and by the time we figure it out, we might be a long way down the road.
Yeah, who exactly has control of what agent's going to be an issue, right? Because all I got to do is fish your credentials, and then I got control of your agents, and party's on.
Yes.
So, yeah, that will definitely be an interesting story to report in about another 9 months or so, I think.
I think you're right. I think you're right there.
You kind of wonder if these companies are anticipating these things happening, right? So they put in like little fine prints when they talk about security and about trust with their products, right? Like they're anticipating there will be a problem down the line. So they're trying to get a little bit ahead of it. And I always get that feeling at these things, like it's too good to be true. So, but you need to read the fine print, if you're patient enough. Nobody is. And that's the other thing that always lends a little bit of suspicion to me at these events. They're just presented as like so clean and and so easy. And it's just, that's not the case.
It is not. It is not.
Anyway, a lot of effort was made to ensure that the mainframe is still hanging out with the cool kids, and it's part of the mainstream platform. And honestly, I hear all the vendors, doing this kind of thing, and I scratch my head sometimes. I'm like going, I think you guys are the only ones who think the mainframe isn't cool, because everybody else keeps using it and they're doing work on it every day, and you're the only ones walking around going, oh my God, is this thing, not hip? And it's like, no, actually the platform's plenty hip. Everybody hanging around it, maybe not so much. We'll see. All right. Well, folks, that's where we're going to end it. It's been an interesting week so far, and we got more to come tomorrow. So by all means, stay tuned. And we have an awesome lineup of shows right behind us. Hope, John, thanks for being on the show.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And if you hadn't noticed, Mitch had to leave early. But hey, we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.